Anyone comment on recruiting with the economy becoming a little bit more volatile? I don't know if anyone's seeing significant change out there in recruiting. I don't know if anyone wants to jump on this one. Maybe not the most fun one to jump on unless things are exactly the same. And I'll start with Donna Clarke. Go for it.
Sure. We definitely have some students, not the majority of students in consulting, who have been impacted by consulting firms moving their start date back, in some cases with a bonus to do so. That is something new. I mean, I've been doing this for, I'm not going to even reveal how long, and I have not seen a year, where consulting firms are doing this in such a widespread way. I was reassured last week that there are more students going into consulting that have not had their date moved back than there are students who do have their date moved back. I would say, having worked at a couple of different business schools during recessions, not that we're officially in one yet, but obviously a lot of talk about a changing economy. I think that during a recession or times like this, a student might have to work a little bit harder or maybe be a little flexible, like what's your plan A and plan B? But I just believe so much in the extent to which MBA students are sought after in the job market. I cannot say in a 30-year career that I've ever seen a year where like a notable number of students weren't placed. I mean, there are years where they had to work a little harder or maybe be a little more flexible. But yeah, I think we're seeing some new patterns that we didn't see the last couple of years, and in tech as well. Hopefully if somebody were to apply this coming season, go to a full-time, 21, 22-month MBA program, hopefully, the economy will turn around by then. Of course, I wish I had a crystal ball and could guarantee that, but.
Anyone else want to jump in and talk about employment on campus? Is it the same basically on other campuses?
Just quickly, I can echo what Donna's saying. It's, there've been some start dates pushed out, but not really rescinds or anything that dramatic, which I think is comforting. And I think one aspect of that, I think a number of us were around in the Great Recession of 07, 08, where firms, investment banks and consulting firms, they stopped their recruiting programs, and there were classes where they didn't hire at all, and they realized that that's not smart strategy. You can maybe pull back a little bit, but you want to keep the spigot flowing because you don't want to disrupt the talent pipeline. And so I think they've learned their lessons in terms of not overcorrecting when there's some softening, and so they've kept things flowing. So we've seen, I don't know what the final numbers, we don't have the final numbers yet, but from talking to our career development office, we've seen those start dates pushed out, but really have not, firms have been sort of honoring their offers, which is a comforting thing to see.
Yeah, I just attended my 20-year MBA reunion, and I graduated during even prior to the financial crisis, the tech bust of like 02, 03 into like a horrible hiring market, and 20 years later, like it's a very happy crew. Like no one's career was encumbered. And I think I was on a podcast recently with Professor Ed Friedman from Darden, actually, and it was a lot of fun to chat with him. And he asked me kind of, like what the biggest, about some of the fallacies, and I said, that I think one of the biggest fallacies is that, about the MBA is that like it's about that like big leap right after school, when I think people really feel like the value is something that endures not in a spreadsheet, but just in a perspective on treating other human beings and shaping a culture and shaping values 20, 30 years later, and that's really the power of it, and that you might experience. Possibly experience a little volatility. It's unlikely actually, but you might experience a little volatility during an unusual time if you graduate, but then it should work itself out. You should be fine over the long haul.